There are some restaurants that resonate far beyond their four walls, and one of those is SingleThread Farms in Healdsburg, California. A 3-star Michelin restaurant, a 5-room inn, and of course a farm that is the beating heart of the operation. SingleThread is led by husband and wife duo Chef Kyle and farmer Katina Connaughton. When I heard they had a cookbook in the works, I wanted to understand better what makes this place so special, particularly at a time when modernist cuisine and fine dining has felt the heat. In the press, and as the public grapples with a dark underbelly from some of the world's most famous restaurants. My conversation with Alex Fuentes, head chef and director of special projects, dives into all of it, you guys. We talk about everything. So if you're someone who's interested in hospitality at the highest level, wine country, modernist cuisine, or the future of farm to table, this episode is for you. Let's talk to Alex.
This could happen to you. This could happen to you. This could happen to you.
Alex Fuentes, welcome to Not From Concentrate.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. You are, of course, the head chef of special projects at SingleThread, which is a really special place. I have yet to go myself, but I have read about it and seen videos of it. And my friend Georgia is working on a cookbook with you all right now. So before we dive in, I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about SingleThread and that project, and then we'll get into you and all the fun stuff you're doing there.
Yeah, so SingleThread is a restaurant that opened, we're about to hit 9 years now, feels like a little bit longer, in end of 2016. I started by a husband-wife combo, Chef Kyle Connaughton and Katina, his wife, Connaughton. Amazing power couple, him being the chef, kind of the brain of the operations, have worked in amazing restaurants throughout the world, and kind of his wife following him along in that path. And they started as a young couple when they met when they were 15, a very beautiful love story, young couple punks from the OC area, fell in love, honeymooned up in Healdsburg, went on this wild journey through Japan, England, all over the world where he was cooking at some of the best restaurants. While along at the same time, she was discovering her love for farming and kind of agriculture and kind of nurturing. We're a roughly 46-seat restaurant doing kind of fine dining, contemporary California cuisine with a heavy lean on, Japanese inspiration influence. We never claimed to call ourselves a Japanese restaurant, but with Chef Hal's time out in Japan and training and a lot of their love and reverence for their time out there, highly influenced the design of the space and the flow of the menu and the experience and, the style of hospitality, kind of known as omotenashi, or kind of really overwhelming hospitality, as we like to call it. That really echoes with everything we do from everyone here, but also the stewardship of the land and the farm and kind of sustainability and regenerative agricultural practices that Katina practiced and kind of learned and studied throughout her time really have created a special experience that I've been lucky to be a part of for almost 8.5 years now.
Can you, Alex, give me a little bit of your culinary background and how you became involved in this project?
Yeah, so I guess I started in the culinary industry around when I dropped out of college in 2011, I want to say. It's a little hazy. But was always in love with cooking, a big part of food and kind of restaurants, and that culture was always a big part of my family growing up. My mom being basically French and Eastern European by descent, moved to the States when she was young, and same with my dad, who's a Salvadorian. They met in Los Angeles, but always kind of instilled a big love of food and food culture. Was going to go to college in the normal traditional routes for architecture, but it kind of never clicked. I was much more of a hands-on architecture, kind of, model and kind of model building and woodworking was what I liked about it. Once I had to sit at a desk in college for a long period of time, it kind of slowly lost its luster and all the computer generation. Started cooking at a family friend's restaurant, really fell in love with it, kind of got the bug pretty early into that time. Apprenticing, applied to the Culinary Institute of America up here in Napa Valley in St. Helena. And from that moment of starting school and being fully immersed with the culinary world, just kind of caught the bug and really never looked back. Saw it as something that I love, but also living in NorCal was something really special. Through word of mouth, I heard about this project, SingleThread. I asked for a stage, and the summer of 17. So I got an opportunity, never really thought I wanted to chase this high up the mountain, and just fell in love with the culture, fell in love with the people, really felt like a genuine familial vibe that I love about the camaraderie of a kitchen and restaurants. But, with this caliber of cooking and, the kind of trope of fine dining and especially Michelin, the intensity and kind of the toxicity that definitely persisted a long time ago, wasn't at all present. And I didn't even get a whiff of it. I'm pretty empathetic. So I kind of could feel energy of the cooks and, watching Kyle and Katina in the beginning before service, like really having like genuine, moments together, talking with love and compassion to their team. Their daughter worked there. The chef de cuisine at the time just had a child. His wife was there hanging out, family meal. Like it just felt very communal in a way that wasn't a facade, clearly. And was lucky enough to get offered a position, which I was very much not qualified for. Managed to, work my way up and kind of keep filling in odd positions or random kind of requests from either consulting work that he does or partnerships and branding that was working on at the time, or new concepts that we were doing even back then that we were a part of. And I was able to kind of, be more of that abstract mindset to help create new things with him and take his vision or what we've created so far, or they really have created at SingleThread, and to kind of re-expand it or capsulate it into other ideas was where I kind of managed to find my niche and slowly work my way into this special projects, amorphous role that I have now, which is a dream come true. Honestly, I can't have asked for it.
I'm really excited to dive into the projects of it all. The way that we actually got connected, even though of course I've known about SingleThread, was my friend Georgia Friedman, who's a food writer, has been working with your team and bringing a cookbook to life, which I'm really excited to talk about. I was going to wait until later in the podcast, but you mentioned the toxicity that can sometimes exist when we think about a Michelin star restaurant. And when we decided to chat, this was before any of the recent sort of like NOMA, I don't want to say revelations, because I think folks in the food world have known about this for a long time. But all that is to say, it is not an easy time for fine dining, for folks focusing on modernist cuisine. It is being challenged at a systems level. And I guess I just want to sort of get it out of the way. How do you think about that? How do you feel like SingleThread has managed to sort of escape some of that? And how do you look at fine dining and dining at this level on the whole, and sort of how we move forward as food lovers and serious cooks and people who do want, fine dining to exist?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been because of the recent resurgence and scandal of Renee and those guys. It's been something I've been talking a lot about. Guests who I've interacted with have asked me personally, but also just in general, what we do here at SingleThread. I'm very big advocate for the way that we I like to have coined it, or, we've kind of used here, a compassionate kitchen. You can still execute at a high level while still being nice to your team and caring and supportive. And those two things, even though previously were very mutually exclusive, they don't have to be anymore. And that actually, with the new workforce, the aging and education of people of my generation who were kind of on the cusp of that, having received it, but also really not conforming to it, being able to like break the cycle has been something that me and my peers and the other managers that we always talk about. It's not easy. I think it's a high intense environment. It's like akin to working in, the Premier League of soccer, or, being at, NBA, like being on one of the best teams. Like you really have to put in work. You have to want it. It's very competitive, whether it's self-competing, you're competing with yourself all the time to do better, or you're always under scrutiny because of the price point, or the guest expectation is so high and what they're paying is deservingly so. They deserve only the best. So I think it's always a challenge when you're in these high intense environments and how people are responding to it or taking the criticism and how they handle their own emotions. I think it's something that famously I loved listening back in the day to a podcast a long time ago from David Chang early on, kind of talking about how we're not equipped in the hospitality industry to handle our emotions. The EQ wasn't really important, especially in the old guard and his generation and Chef Kyle's generation. He tells me old war stories of the things that were done and were quite normalized in a little bit of, I don't want to say a boys club alone, because there was very much many people, but it was very much a boys club. And the pressures and expectations they were put through, and mind you, they almost co-opted it and were okay with it. And there wasn't as much outspokenness, which was the issue back then, and became taken as the norm and the status quo. If you work at Michelin, get expected to get hit or something. It's like, what? No. And not to name any restaurants, but I have definitely experienced a lot of toxicity and verbal, small physical abuse, which I did not allow. So it was very much like I also kind of broke my own cycle and left, quote unquote, my abuser, in the sense of not, having enough self-respect and at the time to be like, I don't need this. And this is not why I do this. This is not why I cook, is to just be pressured and demeaned. It doesn't always also result in good food. I think quite the opposite. It ends up being very sterile and soulless. And some of the best meals are made by less structure and more love. I like to say it's very much, you can taste it and feel it when you enter a space, how people work and how they are being treated at work. It's very easy to see whether it's transactional hospitality, where it's very much like, well, you're here paying, so I have to give you the bare minimum, versus, genuine personal hospitality, which something we encourage here, just people to be themselves. There's obviously, maybe don't talk about this, maybe don't talk about that. You kind of give them parameters, but at the end of the day, you say, be yourself, be genuine, be hospitable, take care of the guest, and make it their experience, not like something that we're imposing. I think that starts with essentially the breaking the toxic chain, and caring about your team, caring about the community you're in, the work you do. And then everything else is like, how do you handle with interpersonal dynamics, and making sure that we're training not just ourselves, but the future leaders, like how to talk with people, how to like actually empathize, and how to like be honest with your own emotions. Hey, I've been stressed out today. This is why I'm reacting like this. I apologize. Like coming back behind any time, because in the moment, again, it's a high intense environment, very short intervals, tone and body language can read more than sometimes what your words are, or vice versa. And so it's how you circle back. It's how you connect. It's how you control yourself in those moments that I think what makes, the difference, and being mindful of those things and trying to teach it.
I came up in restaurants in and not anywhere at the level of Michelin stars, but worked in restaurants 2007, 2012. So there was certainly some accepted toxic whatnot. But I had wondered, how much of this, we're talking kind of about the past, and how reflective of that is the future. And it's upsetting that this stuff wasn't highlighted when it was happening and the change wasn't happening. But I do think about the restaurant community a lot, and how much is this the reality now, and how much has it evolved, and wanting to not erase everything that happened while also not wanting to continue and punish a new generation of chefs if this is not the way it's working. And there are systemic issues, financial issues, for sure. It's complicated. But you're the first person I've talked to who is right now living in a successful Michelin-starred restaurant that's growing and thriving. So how do you sort of move forward from this, even though you guys, of course, are not implicated in this, but just it is a cloud over it. And I'm curious, as someone who's succeeding, how do you move forward, and how do you think about sort of the future of this level of dining?
I don't feel like we ever perpetuated. Some could say that there was still some of that intense kitchen culture that can be taken the wrong way. And I'd understand those early years, those people still hadn't really shaved their old bad habits. But I believe twofold almost is that the next generation just won't allow it. And also the optics won't allow it. It's too easy to get got. Not to say that that's a reason to not do something. Should be for the genuine, treating, but you can get catched too easily. I mean, case in point with all the scandals that have happened, and rightfully so, these call outs and these whistleblowers calling out all these bad behaviors, mind you, too late for some restaurants, others very much still happening. And so I think, it's easy to get caught. People are more risk prone, right? If it's going to actually take down your business, then businessmen actually think about it. So I think that's been a good stopper, is that it does actually have ramifications now to your actions, instead of it staying behind the scenes, a la, Kitchen Confidentials or The Bear, things talking about, the aspects of our lives that come into pop culture or present day conversation. But also this next generation is so much more well equipped and comfortable with who they are and not compromising that. And work ethic aside and generational differences, it's besides the point. It's the idea that they just don't stomach it. They'll just leave the next day if you yell at them or do something like the old guard used to. And coming from those kitchens, it can be frustrating because like, I didn't even yell. Like, I'll show you yelling. You know, it's like, but of course, like we never do that. But it's this weird, like that's as where as people like we've been trying to break the cycle is being aware that like, yeah, no, I could be more intense like someone was to me. And I did kind of learn my lesson. Or being young and understanding you do need to kind of work your way up to have a say or have, you know, not necessarily have an opinion because everyone, it's very equitable here. Like everyone has their say, but it's more the idea like not pay your dues, but really like earn it and kind of like work your way head down, focus on something, and then eventually work your way up. And then you can kind of have more know-how to converse. But that used to just get shut down, used to end or punished. Here it's now like much more constructive of like, hey, like this dish isn't there yet. You know, I appreciate you trying to make dishes, but maybe let's try to focus on doing your one station correctly. And then you can start getting creative. Like it's a nice way of saying verse before saying like, what do you know? And then start insulting them or attacking
knocking over the Cambro and freaking out. Yeah.
Exactly. Flipping, you know, throwing the frying pan and stuff. Or, you know, someone which has famously like grabbed me by my collar and it was like, that's it. Like I'm done. And I think that's the best part of it. And I think now it's about how do you still execute without using fear? How do you rule without fear? Like dictatorship versus democracy, right? It's really a simple, but it's harder, right? It is harder. It's more taxing emotionally. You tend to, I say, sometimes I'm a therapist. I really do listen to a lot of people's problems and really try to like engage with them. And I do. And I care about the team that I'm around. And I always say like, I'm always around for them because it's hard to do what they do. And I was there at one point. So it's also not forgetting you were once agreeing you didn't know what this certain vegetable was or how to hold your knife properly. Like forgetting where you came from, I think is also a big challenge. People just get so on their high horses, especially in fine dining, where they're like, you know, at one point you were in culinary school too. Like be nice to this young kid and be more mentorship. And I think what helps us here is that Kyle has a teaching background and is very much involved in the culinary schools and has been a professor and has a lot of, you know, academia and kind of mentorship behind him. And so I think that's the way we look at it is like, it's on me to teach the next generation and bring them up. I'm the only one to blame if they don't get it, right? It's owning the responsibility as opposed to just blaming from below, right? It's top down management.
Well, I appreciate you sitting in the hot seat right out of the gate. We couldn't not address that given everything that's going on in the world and the media. So now that we have that out of the way, we can dive back into the present and the good vibes that you talked about when you showed up at the restaurant. And I am particularly, as much as I could all day hear about the incredible dishes that you make and fantasize about being in your incredible restaurant, 5-bedroom inn, I actually want to think about what SingleThread can teach home cooks and how we can bring some of that into our own lives. And I know you all have a cookbook coming out. And so I want to dive into that a little bit. So I think to start, even though fine dining is obviously what this is all about, I know that food waste is really important to you and
Yes.
how your kitchen operates. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, could you share a little bit about that process? And then also, how can home cooks take some of the things that you're doing in your Michelin-starred restaurant and apply that to their own home cooking?
Love that. Yeah. Food waste is like the words to my heart at the end of the day. It's something that I'm personally very passionate about. I think growing up in a concrete jungle of LA, like the idea of how much a farm actually produces or the idea of what agriculture truly is versus like what's eventually made into the grocery stores, like this illusion of choice that we have and the amount of waste that comes out of that and cosmetically perfect, you know, vegetables and all these things that surround the sustainable movement, especially from the agricultural side that we're a part of. But I don't know if it's also just from like immigrant parents and my dad never wanting to throw anything away. I think there's something in my mind of just wasting food and being resourceful, making sure that you never take more than you're allotted, but also like when you're done with something, like having leftovers, like using it again, trying to get a second life out of stuff. And as a cook, they teach you that for other reasons, but also very much from the business side of things. So it's almost like an ethical side meets, you know, the financial side. It's two sides of the same coin. And I think that's what's fascinating having worked here at SingleThread, because Kyle is very pragmatic and talks about these things, but also with the responsibility of having a farm, the financial responsibility specifically, but also just the stewardship of like all this time, energy. This is what we tell everyone who starts at the restaurant. And whenever they do start, anyone, regardless of department, starts at the farm. So they get an idea and a respect for how much work goes into growing one turnip or one onion. Like it is astronomical, the labor that our farmers go through. And we always try to put them up on the pedestal because they deserve it. But the water, the labor, the time that goes into anything that we do just deserves reverse respect. Like we get stuff from the farm and, we're not quick to just throw something away. If it's the greens of a carrot or onion or whatever, we've put the same amount of energy that into the main part of the vegetable. And so from a financial side, try not to get a little bit extra juice out of that onion or that lemon. No one juices an onion. But, trying to get the most out of something that you've already invested in from a financial side, but then ethically really doing something with everything is just like the responsible feeling, like as a chef, like just throwing away perfectly produce, just it also shows a lack of creativity. I think there's a fun side of it that is like, I say creative constraints. Sometimes it's more fun to have like rules behind your creativity. Like I can't use this vegetable or I have to use this. And I think in this sense, preservation and utilization of all the farm stuff has been a big driver for not necessarily our cuisine, but also just my own personal interest and kind of how I dipped into my special role and kind of was doing more of the R&D side of things early on was from fermentation or a want to like, oh, we have a bunch of extra turnips from the farm, like, and no one's using them. Okay, I'll just go pickle them. Like it's a want to do the right thing in that sense by the farmer's sake. It's a creative outlet to create something new, but also like it's a little bit of a set it, forget it too. Instead of like trying to make a dish you have to serve that moment, it's like, okay, I'll put this away for later and then I get to play with it. More paints in my kind of palette, right? It's very smart and kind of resourceful as a chef.
That all makes perfect sense. And I always say that like whenever I'm having a discussion with someone about food waste, I think it's so important to take, whatever lights you up about it, like recognize that, but try and see what it is for the other person. Because for someone, it might be I'm worried about climate change and I don't want to contribute to that. And I don't want to waste for that reason. And that can be a way in. Or somebody can be a climate change denier, but not want to lose money. And so don't worry about that argument because you're going to get to the same place. Like there's so many good reasons to preserve food. And so I really try to not get too bogged down in like fighting people ideologically and just figure out like, okay, what is their way in? Because we're going to meet.
Which direction do you want to enter in this conversation?
We'll go in that way.
I have a talking point for each one.
Exactly. I've got a talking point for each one. So I love that. So I want to go back. You had mentioned like carrot greens or turnip greens. What is like a specific, and it might be one of those, what is a specific thing that I'm in my home kitchen, I'm looking at my produce drawer, I don't want it to turn into the sludge of shame. Give me a chef trick. What is a thing that I can preserve or pesto or make something that's gonna prevent me from throwing it away?
I say like look back, whether it's your own culture or other cuisines and cultures you like, look back in history. There was not refrigeration, 200 years ago, right? Like everyone was doing this stuff. Everyone was preserving. Everyone had kind of farmsteading mindset, whether it's here or the old country. And I think when you look at something, it's like kimchis are very simple, right? They're just salt. You basically just salt something and you set it, forget it. You put some spices, you put some, aromatics, whatever. But I think salting is one of the easiest ways to preserve something. It's makes it into a condiment. I think especially Asian cultures and Japanese culture specifically, like you have white rice that's unseasoned. If I just salt all the greens from all these vegetables, turnip tops, radish tops, leafy greens, carrot top, anything, I just lightly salt them, put some spices or, some aromatics to your even taste. It doesn't have to be necessarily Korean. You let it ferment in your fridge slowly for 2 weeks in a kind of sealed jar.
You're going to have to, okay, that sounds really
Explain
easy
more.
for you. I think most people are like, that's scary. How do I know it's not going to kill me? Like,
bacteria is everywhere. That's the beauty. No.
But you're telling me I can just ferment some greens with a little salt. Like, give me step by step how I can do it, or point me towards a resource so that people feel like they can tackle this.
Well, so yeah, maybe salting's a little more advanced. It's easy for me, but drying is the other one. I guess if I'm going away from salting, it's really with any preservation or fermentation, I like to say you're just dealing with moisture, time, and temperature. So it's really like the key things with any fermenting or preserver, because it's not always about changing the product. It's just making sure it doesn't go bad. You remove the moisture by drying it. Now you have time to do whatever you want to it, whether you rehydrate it later or you blend it and use it as a spice in your pantry, again, later. But removing the moisture is one of the easiest things. That's kind of what salt does, which you can kind of salt something and then dry it. But that going through the whole fermentation, I understand, can be actually very scary and takes time.
I don't want to like shut us down because that's cool. But I'm actually wondering, is there anything that's like maybe a fridge pickle or a condiment, something that's like a little less scary? Maybe it's not going to last for months, but like I can put it in my fridge or my freezer for a little bit.
Yeah.
And approach it that way.
Yeah, I guess really, let's just say carrot tops, right? That's like an easy one that tends to come with most farmers market carrots. Like I'm trying to think of like what still looks nice on the vegetable. Taking those carrot tops and salting them roughly 2% by the total weight, which for something like a carrot top has no weight to it. So you tend to do a brine. So how much moisture, how dense the vegetable is. The carrot itself, plenty of water. You can just salt it, let it sit. But a brine is salted water, right? Brining something is essentially adding a certain percentage of salt to the water and put the product in there. So that for like carrot tops or greens works really well. It wilts it. And for the type of like dill pickle or yogurt kind of tang, that's kind of lacto fermentation, lactobacillus, the bacteria, needs an anaerobic environment, aka an airtight jar. So it doesn't want any air to get in. It wants salt of a certain percentage, and it wants something to eat, essentially starch or kind of sugars or something that it wants to kind of feed off of. And it releases gases. It releases CO2. So if you've ever seen an old jar or old something in your fridge and it's like in a plastic container, it kind of bubbles up, you know instantly that it's gone sour because it's releasing gases. You can kind of intentionally do that. And that's kind of something that was very easy to do. And if you have like an airtight jar every couple of days in your fridge, and if you're doing it in the fridge, it's a very low temperature. If you do it outside room temperature, it's going to go a lot quicker,
sketchier.
which is why I kind of, exactly, it takes a little bit more know-how, and it's usually a week. In your fridge, in cold dynamics, it can take up to 2 to 4 weeks, which is more forgiving. You can also taste along the way to kind of find the tanginess, the acidity, the amount of lactic acid that it has to your own liking. It's like when I make kombucha at home, I kind of cut it pretty early because I don't like the vinegar flavor. I like it more sweet from the sugar that it's fermenting. So it's all intervals of time at a lower temperature. Gives you a lot of wiggle room to figure out what you like, which is why a lot of kimchis or certain things are actually done cold, because it's like about marination. It's the garlic, it's the alliums needing to break down through salt, but also has the chili in there, and then whatever cabbage or substrate, main object you have.
And how do we know we're not, like, it's not spoiling or we're not making ourselves sick? Is that the salinity percentage? Like, maybe it's a recipe you can point us to, but I think people are going to want some guidelines probably.
Usually, so my kind of rule of thumb when you're doing any type of brine fermenting, nothing less than 2% by the weight of the product. So let's just say all my cabbage was 1,000 grams. We go by metric. Also, just going to say that it's better. That's a soapbox that I will die on. Me and Chef Kyle.
You and every chef and baker. It makes sense. Get a scale.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, exactly. The American system sometimes. So yeah, exactly. Use a scale, get weights. It's very accurate. So if it's 1 kilogram or 1,000 grams, just 2% of that, essentially, of just salt, dry, it leaches out its own moisture. If you put it in, I guess really to your original question is, we live around bacteria everywhere. It's present. Whether they're harmful is, I think, the misnomer. I think COVID really got us back into over sterilization. And so that's a whole different, again, soapbox, but knowing something gone bad is the presence of other bacteria, but also off flavors. The best survival instinct we have for things that aren't meant to be eaten is our tongues, is taste. And so if it tastes not, how do I even describe it? Because if you know like what yogurt tastes like, you know, dill pickles, like those are the proper acidic, you know, flavors. If you taste something that feels like it makes you want
It's
to
not to gag.
or
Yeah.
smells off, it's off. It's bad. Like it's just, it's no other way of saying it. It's hard to describe. Or
I would like to see you tell some home cooks that they need to just taste it and see if it makes them want to puke.
Just
And that's,
taste it.
That's why you guys have a Michelin star and most people don't.
because we're willing to do the
Because
damage.
you're willing to do the damage. Are these the kind of recipes that are in your cookbook? Like, let's talk about this cookbook a little bit.
Great question. Yeah. And that's kind of what's funny about our cookbook is very much, you know, almost more a philosophy book, I like to say. Having gone through it, you know, cookbook is almost not even the right term, only because, and that may sound pretentious, but it's really something that we've battled through the process, and something funny enough that Georgia was very much like, we need recipes for people to actually do. And it was a big challenge for us because Kyle always says, like, you don't have our turnips, you don't have our farm, you don't have our ingredients. How can someone make what we do? He'd rather teach someone how to think like us and do it in their own way. So he's done a lot of articulation, a lot of words in the recipes, which is why Georgia is amazing. She did a wonderful job taking in all this information from Chef Kyle and all of us, and kind of regurgitating something that was really digestible to read. But, you know, the recipes that we do have come more from our like breakfast menu and our inn that the guest experience that is much more home style cooking. And I say home style because relative to our tasting menu, it's not all composed, but we do have basically all those recipes and all those dishes kind of to back up. It starts, follows basically the course of a whole year at our farm. And given that the farm is what drives the philosophy of the book and our restaurant, starts with spring and kind of goes through the progression of our menu from our first course to our last pastry course. And through each season, and each dish essentially highlights a vegetable within that season that we focus on, because it's all about the vegetables. The protein is a part of this, but we really do try to have the vegetable be the star. So within those, there are like ways to clean a turnip properly, or how to do something that the dish is actually asking for, but we don't give numbers and weights necessarily in that portion of the menu. And then after each season, we have a section that's more following our donabe hot pots. Donabe are a Japanese earthenware that we're very known for doing. And Chef Kyle's previous book with his co-author, Naoko-san, they kind of wrote a book about these clay pots from Iga from Japan that we are in love with and we use everywhere. So we do for the inn, kind of, I guess your in-room dining. The only thing that we offer is this kind of other 5-course tasting menu, which includes the big hot pot as your main entree. And so it provides those recipes for making the hot pots, but a little bit more our version as opposed to the ones from the original book, and some of the breakfast options. So as you stay in the inn, it's complimentary breakfast. You have a choice of a Japanese or kind of Sonoma, kind of, you know, Americana mix of meals or kind of dishes. And so it provides all the recipes for those, which are more like a simple cauliflower salad with like kind of like a cauliflower puree with, you know, sesame paste, or some things of like a tomato and cucumber salad, lightly dressed with like a shiso dressing. So things that are a lot more practical for someone to make. They can actually source the ingredients. Approachable, exactly. As opposed to some of these, like, you need to activate with 3 hydrocolloids, a certain gel, and whip it until this temperature. It's a lot that isn't translate, but for chefs and more professional people, we do provide it still, because we do think there'll be an audience who wants to read through, as I did once, through these books and kind of study all the little shapes and look at the knife cuts in the corners of the photos.
And if you had to distill it down, like, what is the why and the how? What are you hoping that a reader takes away?
I guess the big why is, I think, that we try to lean on is seasonality and locality, right? It's really much like getting people back to the idea that you shouldn't eat a tomato in the winter. Like, it just isn't good. It's never good. And it's usually not coming from somewhere close to you. And that's impacting this bigger food systems issue we have, but also from an environmental standpoint. Like, there's so much added stuff that people are very aware of, but the greater food systems still encourage it and still much thrive on it. So people really trying to take the opportunity to understand, like, these are the vegetables in this time of year, and even within the short 2-week window, this is something that you should eat now, and then it should be gone, and it should be fine. It's something you should look forward to next year, but also how to handle those things in abundance as well, like kind of referring to preservation. A lot of the stuff is too talking about like the different stages of a pea and how we have a farm. We use the pea flowers, and then slowly as they mature, we use them for a little tiny dish. But as we get dumped with the plant, then we have a full dish, of course, on the menu, versus a tiny little canapé. And so it's also talking about responding to the seasons, being closer in contact with farms, farmers, and the agricultural side of things, but also where your meats come from, where your fish come from, sustainable sources for these things. So it's a lot of that is telling people about the things that we've come up with or we've connected with or people that we've connected with as almost a roadmap of like either find your own local people because they're everywhere. Everyone has a small community of local artisans and, food, hospitality related purveyors that are doing great work and work that has been done for years or generations that we should be supporting, that should be passed on, that should be heralded more so than just a cheap caviar coming from halfway across the world. That's just a luxury moment that takes no skill from a chef. There's no real story. And who is this for at the end of the day? It's just high value for high value's sake, as opposed to something that's impactful, something that's making a change, something that you actually want to dig past the surface layer. And I think that's what a lot of our guests luckily have. They want to go deeper. They want to know, oh, I have my own little garden, but I didn't think to use this part. Oh yeah, it's a great part of the dish. Here's it tempura fried. Like you can eat this just as well as you can eat, we call it, I guess, the root to flower, kind of like the root to shoot. It's supposed to head to tail.
I really like you brought that up too, because I'm seeing, and maybe it's a little cynical, but I feel like we're in this moment where we're seeing really high-end restaurants with like overt luxury moments, which have their place, and like I can get down with that for sure.
Some people want it, yeah.
And then you're really not seeing as much thriving. Just the economics of restaurants have become so difficult. You're not seeing as much on that other side. So I really appreciate that you guys are talking about that and sort of pushing back a bit on like luxury just for luxury's sake and peeling that back. As someone who I graduated college in 2007. I entered my career when sort of the farm to table movement was very sexy and very hot right now at that moment. It feels like you guys are drilling down on that and that there's good energy around it. And I'm curious, why do you think SingleThread and your team are the people to do it? What is special about what you all are doing that makes you the right people to bring us back to that moment and romanticizing that a bit in a positive way?
They have this uncompromising vision. And they really kind of pushed with the farm being the first thing that they started. It was 2 years before the restaurant opened, and all the investors, all these people were always saying like, well, why don't you just have a restaurant and then slowly like work on the farm and have that come later? And they're like, no, because this is everything, because it's about proper agricultural practices that we want to teach. It's about understanding really what sustainability is, but also like the best produce and the best access to stuff comes from us controlling what's in the soil, how the soil is even managed, to then how we harvest it, when we harvest it. As a chef, wanting to bring the best stuff is having the most control through the process to get the best ingredients. So as a power couple that she was uncompromising in how she farmed, and that resulted in amazingly delicious and beautiful produce, and vice versa. That's all that Kyle wanted to work with is amazing stuff that, his wife grew. And so they were very much uncompromising. It was a big part of our narrative and vision, but also I think leaning into what other cultures and a lot of their inspiration from Japan is out there, in a lot of other cultures. Seasonality isn't a fad. Like farm to table isn't a thing in France. It's, you go to the countryside and there are farms and they come to the table. Like those terminologies don't exist outside of America because we've created such an aggressive, manufactured foods system that farm to table became a thing. But we always like to refer to, Alice Waters being like the mother of all this, because she was the one that actually named the farm. She's the one who put the farmer to notoriety. And I think that's what really coins farm to table is is understanding that they are more important than the person making the food at the end of the day, and giving the spotlight to them.
Yeah, I think it works for single thread too, because it's not like, oh, this is just like a brand extension. It's like you are actually vertically integrated. Like the farm is the heart of it, and then everything kind of shoots off of it. So that makes sense, and I think people can feel that, and they can taste it.
We have our farm that you can actually go to, and I think there's something that clicks, whether it's before the dining experience or after, that the guest gets to actually go to the farm. Before, it's anticipation and wonder. After, it's recognition and also wonder. It's like, wow, I just ate that. Oh my God, this is what it looks like. And I think just we're so removed from our food. And I think going back to Alice Waters, the edible schoolyard movement and things where you reconnect with nature, as we're always destined to be, not to sound hippy-dippy in that sense, but it's very much like, I think, connecting with the food, touching the soil, looking at the vegetables, eating it, a cherry tomato in the summer, straight off the vine. You can't beat that. That is, no chef can make a better dish than that tomato that comes off the vine. I will stand behind that.
We haven't talked very much about the Japanese influence on the restaurant, and obviously the book and everything. I know this is tough, but can you distill a few sort of philosophical, since you said the book has philosophy in it, like sort of philosophical takeaways that we can bring into our own home kitchens that you use in your kitchens that really come from that Japanese influence?
That's a great one. I feel like there's a couple, but the big one that we have in SingleThread that we kind of have as our slogan really is kaizen, and it kind of loosely translates to like continual improvement. And it comes from the corporate world inherently, but it's also inherent within the Japanese culture of everyday incremental improvement. And it's one thing of like the mastery, like why a sushi chef, says, after 50 years, he's still learning, right? It's his mindset that you are always a learner. You can learn from anyone. You can always improve your craft, I think, is something. Not being hard on yourself, right? The idea that if you don't get it today, you can get a little bit tomorrow, and incremental over time builds more than just trying to be jump A to Z and just feeling like, oh, I got this. Like everything takes time to get good at, especially cooking. You have to try recipes multiple times. You have to fail. Failure is important. If I did a recipe correct once and I go back to it, I mess up. Well, I only did it once, but if I mess it up 10 times, I'll never mess it up again, right? It's this idea of being okay with failure is a big part of it. So little improvement, kaizen. And then one that we really love, I always use is Ichigo Ichie, which is like, there's no time like now, like this moment will never happen again. And I think that's something like being appreciative when you're at home and you're cooking, like don't get so caught up in cooking. Enjoy the people you're with, who you're cooking for. The conviviality, the moment of getting to cook for someone is more important than how the product actually turned out, which is easy for me to say. But I think that's something that is more of the soulful side of it, where it's like, enjoy every moment because it never will happen again.
A practice to come back to. So, Alex, we end every podcast with what I call the busy brain section of the podcast, which consists of 2 questions. So the first one is, how do you inspire creativity in the kitchen when maybe you're not feeling super inspired?
Oh, God, that's a good question. I guess inspiring creativity comes for me from collaboration. I think a lot of the time, like, especially when I'm not feeling it, I feed off of a lot of other people's energies. I perform better in a group as I've worked a lot alone. So I've learned the difference of me working in a silo, kind of writer's block, if you will, kind of trying to cook something versus like asking for opinions, or even if a recipe is not ready, or if I'm not really getting something, I just go to someone and empty out my brain, regurgitate everything that I'm considering before I can even act. Like this almost action paralysis I have from overthinking, which is my strong suit at the end of the day, I like to say, but is asking someone, hey, like, this is what I'm considering. I can go 3 ways, 3 doors that I'm entering here. Which one do you think? Oh, definitely not door 3. Go to 1 or 2. Great. You just narrowed me down. And the collaborative moment, I think, is overlooked because of, whatever insecurities or ego, or being okay with just sharing ideas in the roughest of drafts comes also from having a team you're very close with. So I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, I guess inspiration also comes from like what just comes through the door. I think that's what's fun too, working at SingleThread, is it could be like, hey, the peas are earlier than last year, right? We have a bunch of peas. We got to put on a dish sooner than later. Or oh no, a gopher got into the radish patch, right? Or the turnips. We don't have turnips anymore. Like, you got to change this. And so I like those kind of forced push off the edge kind of moments too.
Creative constraints.
Exactly. And I do better in like sink or swim or kind of like on the fly. I think that's what made me a good line cook when I was younger, is quick thinking and, just lots of awareness of things around me. So I'm like, oh, like someone can have mushrooms and they just told us, of course, before. I run to the walk-in. I knew there was, something in the corner that they could have, and I prepare it really quickly. Like, I think that's like where I thrive, is that kind of quick action moments. So those are kind of the two things. It's either like slow process, which I'm not good at, having a conversation and working through an idea with someone, or sink or swim, figure it out in 5 seconds. Here's your mystery box, cook. And it's kind of the fun of it, the excitement, the adrenaline.
That is classic busy brain behavior. We love that.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I love that part about sharing the earliest drafts. I think that's really, really good advice. So the second part, and being, cooking at the level you do, I'm sure you're a very clean cook, but for calming the chaos, how do we calm chaos in the kitchen? Because it inevitably happens.
Something I learned very early was just like, there's always going to be something going on. Everything's a priority, especially when everything is happening, right? And 30 seconds for us, or I guess really like 30 seconds for us feels like, forever, right? If the time lapse of things is so extrapolated, like it's this like quick action, quick thinking. So I may be stressing about, okay, this fish isn't cooked and I'm freaking out and whatever, like having all this intensity behind being behind on something. And taking a second, you learned over the years, like if you just rush that out, it's not going to be cooked properly or whatever. Something could go wrong. Take a second, breathe, right? Realize the stakes of the game. Everything's going to be fine if they wait 30 more seconds, or if they wait even a minute, because they get a good cooked piece of protein. And I think that same idea, like a cluttered mind, we always say a clutter station is a cluttered mind. Like if your stuff is everywhere. So it's also like the instantaneous of doing something is what I was very much grilled when I started working at this level was, I grab my pen or my knife, whatever, and I put it down. I pick it up to go do the same thing. I put it back in the same spot. I don't put it down somewhere else. I don't, especially being someone with a busy brain, I am notorious that I don't take my work home. So at home, I'm putting things everywhere and my house is not as organized as my station. But I've learned hacks from working that is like, okay, no, if I grab my keys, put them back on the key holder.
My husband is trying to train me to do this, and I'm still really struggling with it, but we're working on it. I'm like, the ketchup goes in this drawer. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a lot of peer pressure and peer oversight. Yeah, I joke, I don't take my work home sometimes. So my house does not look like my kitchen or like how I would keep my station. But that was a big one. It's just like, it's the routine and the discipline of it all, right? It's just like, you go through A, B, C, go back to A, and then don't go back to E. Like, don't jump to the next thing, even though you need to do it. And it's you're thinking about it the whole time you're doing A, but like, just go back to the start, restart, start the next thing. Like, finish something completely, start the next thing. And that means in the short interval and the long interval, right? It's the short one is way easier to get things everywhere. It's just like, take that second to like properly throw that away, or like don't start something until you've reset. I think that's like the big idea. Just slow down to go faster, we say. It's like if you're just going fast, you're frantic. But if you take a second, look from the top down, take a breather. Usually a breath is wonders in the kitchen. Sometimes I'll just look at a young cook. I'm like, it's okay. Take a breath. It's fine. I got you. I'm here. But like, just take a second. You're fine. The world's not going to burn. The world's not going to end. Yeah. Take a breath. Easy.
That's great. That's great advice. Alex, I realized that we never said the name of the cookbook. What is the name of this book that you all have coming out?
It is the SingleThread Farms Restaurant and Inn. It is the namesake of the book. It has no other title. That's the beauty of it. It is synonymous. No,
okay, great.
It's almost easy to miss because it is our name. So it'll be easy to find.
Fabulous. Well, Alex, thank you so much for the time today. We are all going to go out and pre-order the SingleThread Farms cookbook, which is available for pre-order now. Where else can we find you online? Or are you an online person?
Yes. Yeah. I'm not a big, on my presence, usually stories, but my Instagram is _A Fuentes, Fuentes. And that's usually where I'm reposting usually people's stuff or, talking about some cool stuff that I get to do with Chef Kyle as I travel the world and make good food.
Awesome. And what about SingleThread?
It should be at SingleThread Farms. We're very adamant to keep the farm in all our branding and name, as the restaurant and inn is important, but it's SingleThread Farms is the way to find us. Yeah.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for your time today. And I can't wait to challenge myself to do something really exciting with some farmers market turnips. Maybe I'll ferment them or pack them in salt, and I'm going to get back to you. And of course, I can't wait to read through the beautiful new book as soon as it hits shelves. It's available for pre-order now. And so we should all go add that to cart.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you.
And you, thank you for being here today. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Alex, and it would mean so much to me if you could share your favorite episode of Not From Concentrate with a busy-brained friend. Thanks so much, you guys. I'll see you next time. Not From Concentrate is distributed by PRX and produced by me, Catherine Smart, with audio and video editing by Kevin O'Connell. Our associate producer is Allie Miller, and our theme music is by Kylie Daly.